Scriver's amazingly ultimate fundraising superstar podcast, talking all things fundraising, charities, nonprofits, and more. Here's your host, as always, Simon Scriver.
How's it going, fundraisers? Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. If you listen to my ramblings, then you're probably aware that I am a little bit paranoid when it comes to the internet listening to me. And I firmly believe the internet is listening to me all the time, and they're targeting me and they're tracking me, and all this crazy shit is going on. And I can prove it because I know every time I say, "Hey Google," my "Hey Google" picks up that I'm saying that. So obviously they're listening to me all the time. Anyway, today I have a really special guest who's look, there's my Google talk to me. I have a really special guest today who is going to talk me through digital, all the bits of digital that I don't understand, which is so much fun. And she is one of the experts in the world and someone that I always look up to and always keep an eye out for everything she puts out there. She is Ms. Claire Kerr. Hello, Claire.
Hello. Hi. This is exciting.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you finally. I've been wanting to get you on here for ages.
This is great. I'm a long-time listener.
I don't believe that, but okay. So Claire, for people, I think a lot of people who hang out online probably know you. But for those who don't, you are the director of Kerr too. But you're kind of a lot more than that, are you? How would you describe yourself? Who are you?
At Kerr 2, I'm the Canadian country director, but I also teach digital strategies for charities at George Brown College in Toronto. And I also, if you follow me on Twitter or on LinkedIn, I give free digital fundraising advice to anybody who wants it. And I basically am interested in everything that charities and nonprofits can do online. So I've worked in, I'd say the charitable sector, sometimes fundraising, sometimes arts and culture, program delivery, all of that good stuff, but involving technology for almost 20 years now. Wow. So I went to a university, and although I was a liberal arts major, they were quite big on their co-op experiences for every student. So this was the University of Waterloo for the Canadian listeners. And they got me a co-op placement building websites and doing coding for the federal government, even though I was a history major. So I got started off in technology almost right away, and it kind of propelled me into working in public service and working with charities and nonprofits.
Wow. And you love it, obviously. You always strike me as someone who actually loves the digital side of it, loves the nonprofit side of it. Yeah, I absolutely love it. I mean, it helps to level the playing field for charities and nonprofits. Especially social media platforms, email marketing. Not everyone can go out and get a billboard, on the highway. Not everyone can do direct mail. And those are all great channels. Not everyone can be running DRTV or television ads and things like that. Yeah. But when you see the effect of a small cat shelter in Minnesota, if you know this case study, making a cute little video that was really compelling with a really compelling call to action that was only designed to be online, never on television, never on, in movie theaters or anything like that. And for them to get millions of people watching their video and responding to their call to action, that's something that is replicable. So it's absolutely great to work in the digital space. It does feel like in theory it levels the playing field. Like everyone can have an equal voice and everyone can be, amplified if they're saying the right thing or hitting the right buttons. Maybe we'll get onto this. The reality, there's a few dodgy things going online. You might humor me. Yeah. Oh, good.
Let's get into it. Where it's not level is that in the charitable sector, professionals are really constrained, and they don't have the same resources or access to skill sets as industry does. And so it can be really frustrating because you would look and go, hey, these guys have created a video for Oreo cookies have created a video on Facebook. Why can't we do the exact same thing? We've got a great idea. But then there's budgetary constraints, there's resource and skill set constraints on the charitable sector. Then there's also the fear of testing and the fear of failure. So it isn't exactly the same, but I'm starting to see attitudes changing towards the understanding that testing is important, the understanding that you should assign budget towards digital marketing And then under that, maybe segment out your acquisition, versus your stewardship versus programmatic delivery and things like that. It's starting to be understood more in the sector as that's part of what we do as communications professionals. So it often falls now under communications or technology, but hopefully your departments are not siloed and you don't have, and you have fundraising, marketing, communications, IT, all kind of working together towards your goals.
Yeah.
Assuming you have digital goals.
Yeah. Yes. Well, yeah, I'm not exactly sure. A lot of people do, because a lot of people, they don't have a digital background. They're working for small charities because they're passionate about the cause, and this just isn't really their bag. You've been pretty generous with your, like I said at the beginning, the free resources you put out. And I saw you doing a really interesting thing over recent months where you were meeting, and you still kind of do this. It's like an open invitation for anyone to meet you and just get free advice.
Yeah, so I'll tell this story. Maybe it doesn't put me in the best light, but
good, perfect.
After I left my last job, I'd been working in marketing, and it was a for-profit company, but all of the clients were charities and nonprofits. And of course, I teach nonprofit marketing at George Brown. So all my students there typically are already practitioners. So they're already fundraisers or they're already marketing professionals, and they work for charities and they want to bone up on their digital skills. And so that has been a lot in the charitable sector. And I mentioned how long I've been working in it. So I thought, okay, you know what? I'm done. I'm going to take a break for 6 months, and I'm not going to work for 6 months. I'm really lucky that I had the privilege to be able to do that. And then when I return to the workforce, I'm going to work for a for-profit company that, makes really cool shoes or something.
Yeah.
And I'm getting out of the charitable sector.
You were going to turn your back on us? You were going to walk away?
I'm going to go work for, Campbell's Soup, and only be concerned about selling soup all the live long day, or something like that. So that's what I thought the plan was. So I also thought, if I'm taking then 6 months off and I do come back and I'm going to be working in industry for marketing, I'm not going to be an expert, and I'm using air quotes here on the audio. I'm not going to be an expert in fundraising. I'm not going to be an expert in online donations, blah, 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 and all that stuff. After a year or so, I'm going to be behind the curve. So what I'll do in the 6 months that I'm off is, if anyone wants to know anything from me, I'll give them every single piece of information I have. And that's like my goodbye. Because, you want to know anything, I'll sit down with you. I'll tell you everything. And I don't work for any particular company. I'm not selling anything. I'm not going to become a fundraising consultant. I'm not going to do, any of that kind of stuff. And I'm not working for your what you perceive to be your rival organization in the charitable sector. Like, you can tell me anything and I'll help you out. So I posted that on LinkedIn and I think Facebook. And over the 6 months, I booked over 70 meetings. And I know it was a lot, actually. Yeah. I had to get a software app to actually manage all of that. Yeah. And not all were in Canada too. So I did a lot of Skype calls and talked to people in the US and that sort of thing. And there were a lot of themes that I found that came out of that. And one of the biggest was that every single person that I talked to felt, no matter what their organization was, big brand organization or a small org, they felt that they were doing badly in digital. They all felt they were doing badly. Now, that could be because that you would reach out for advice if you feel that you're not doing well. But there were people that I would have a chat with that initially, they would sort of, talk about their campaigns and sort of say, I want to, know more about this or that. And then it was revealed that they felt that they were not doing well. So a lot of that comes from most of the people that I talked to that reached out to me couldn't define what their goals were on digital. So I would say, okay, you think you're doing badly. What is your goal? Are you trying to acquire more monthly donors? Are you trying to increase awareness of what it is that you do? Are you just trying to bring in a higher average donation amount? Like, what are the goals that you have here? And they were never really defined. The kinds of questions I would get would be, Claire, I'm very anxious. How many times a day should our social media coordinator post on Facebook? I feel like she's not doing it right. Or what color should the donate button be? because there's like all this research. I mean, you could like, go talk to Brady at Next After if you want to know about like, these tweaks and things like that, right? But they're focusing on that. And then the number one question I usually asked was, what percentage of your donations come in online? And I think of all the people I talked to, only one or two can answer that question. So they were going into a discussion about digital, worried about all the things that they were doing wrong without having set some benchmarks for them to adjust against.
I can understand that, because it's like with digital seems limitless. Like it seems endless, and you can always be doing more. You can always be setting up a new account. You can always be testing a different ad. You can always be, there's forums you can be dipping into. And I can see why everyone would feel they're not doing enough. Because it's like you compare yourself to all these big successes, which are seen, but there's just always a feeling you can do more. You can do 5 more minutes work on this, or an hour's more work on this, and it just never ends. That's
such a good way to put it too, because it's sort of, and I talk about this a lot with my students. One of the biggest questions I get all the time is someone will come up with, you could be talking about email marketing, you could be talking about Facebook marketing, whatever it is. And the question is, what's a good conversion rate? It could be like, it could be direct mail you're talking about. What's a good conversion rate? And obviously there's tons of benchmarking, there's tons of formulas and things out there, and, but what I always tell people is it's a good conversion rate if it's better than the last time you looked at your conversion rate. Because no matter what it is, right? I mean, and we've got people trying to benchmark themselves against charities in a completely different vertical, or charities that are doing, doing multi-channel marketing. So they're getting a better return on Facebook because people have been hit with those billboards, and they've been hit with, the television ads, and they've been hit with, like various things. And they don't need to introduce their brand when they go direct marketing to you on a channel like Facebook, right? So what I tell them is that I had one example of attending a conference, and there was a really great case study. And in the case study, the charity revealed what their conversion rate was on one of their channels. It was just one little stat amongst all the stats that they were sharing. And afterwards at the cocktail party, which we all enjoy the cocktail party at conferences, a person that I've been working with told me what they had seen and what they had heard, blah, 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 and how depressed they felt because the conversion rate was, let's just say 8, right? And their own was 5. And I had to say to them, like, what you aren't aware is that charity that you were looking at, their conversion rate used to be 10 and now it's 8. Yours used to be 3 and now it's 5. Who do you think is on the right track? Right? Like if you get like really, really wrapped up in what everybody else is doing and thinking that it should be applied directly to your own campaigns, you can get lost in these little details.
Yeah. Because I guess there's so many variables, different causes, different setups, different marketing, everything, no two donors are the same even. So it's very hard to compare. It's about, and we were just talking about this in the lobster chat earlier this week. It's like data is useful, and you can use it to influence you and use it you can learn from it. But is it gospel? Is it like, well, if the industry benchmark is 30%, then we have to be 30%. That's what we are. But there's like so many other factors that go into it.
And people need to be aware too that I absolutely love the benchmarking reports. M&R is really good. Blackbaud, Luminate online benchmarks just came out with, I think, 3 or 4 pages just for Canada, which is fantastic. So, I mean, they're good. You have to read them in aggregate, and the ones that are year over year, I find the most useful. But also you have to look at who's not included, right? And a lot of the people that I talk to that'll look at these reports or say that they're concerned about something, I'll say, is your organization in these benchmarks? Like, have you been surveyed for these kinds of things? If they haven't, and the fundraisers that they talk to haven't, I mean, you're missing quite a lot of people. Then also how the surveys are put together and how questions are asked is also an issue too. So I feel like there are sort of like signposts or like lights to kind of guide you, and not meant to be something that you determine your entire budget on, or that you let your board members get hung up on, because that can be really difficult too. And I really feel for people.
The other like conspiracy theory that I like going down, this is going to turn into a conspiracy theory podcast.
Oh, but the
there's research that's coming out. The question I always find you have to ask as well is who's putting it out there. Like they're putting it out there, and I don't want to pick on Blackboard, but Blackboard do their report because they're selling Blackboard, and so there's independent stats, and they can't tweak that, but the way they present it and the headlines they pull out and the press releases they put out, they're always very telling of this is selling Blackboard, and it's not necessarily what you as a small nonprofit in the back hills. It's not necessarily what you need right now.
Yeah, I mean, there are, 86,000 registered charities. So in Canada, it could be 86 or 83. I don't know. See, I need to get back into I need to start. I need to get my head back into memorizing all these stats for the sector. But usually it's because I've been off a term for class, and the class starts again in March, and then all the numbers I think will just come out of my head. But that's just the charities, not like necessarily the nonprofits either.
Yeah.
There's a different designation here in Canada.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of orgs that are doing so many different things, that have so many different goals. Are those goals being benchmarked? How are they being represented? So it can be really difficult. I mean, there is such a difference in terms of marketing, communication, and playing in digital fundraising spaces across the board in Canada. In one of the Facebook groups for nonprofit professionals, there was a post from an individual, a professional fundraiser, who was looking for research that she could take to her board because her board didn't think they should let people donate by credit card. So and so this isn't just a random group of volunteers or something like that. It was actual. So if you're dealing with that, imagine the frustration there, where you have to be educating. Not only you're sort of leading upwards, I guess, as the book say, but you also have to be educating everyone around you. Yeah. And that, just on something like a technology piece like the credit card. Now imagine trying to say we need to invest in doing some Facebook ads and having an email marketing platform that allows us to have personalized content, and that will allow us to do an email drip series or something like that. So absolutely, that can be tough.
So were the meetings over those 6 months with those 70 organizations, was it, I'm no doubt they benefited, but did you get a lot out of it? Did you learn a lot from hearing their challenges?
What happened was I felt super nostalgic about the nonprofit sector, because almost every single person who reached out to me, they had enthusiasm, they had passion, they cared. The reason that they would try to get an hour or two of free advice is because they cared so much about what was happening either at their organization, or they were super passionate about their career development and they wanted to talk about career stuff. So I feel like people got put into two buckets. I either had pretty senior people. I had a lot of directors of fundraising, a lot of C-suite type people who wanted to talk about their team structure. They wanted to talk about their overall issues at the organization. And then I had a lot of young professionals who wanted to talk about how they could do better in their career, and that they wanted some advice on that. So they had their own separate frustrations. And I think for a lot of people, talking to somebody like me was a true safe space to talk about issues that I would understand and that they could talk about without me, ending up, being their boss or being their vendor or something like that, So that turned out to be pretty valuable. So I feel like we had that it would start off maybe in a technical discussion, and then end up much more in a philosophical, what is digital? What are the issues in the nonprofit sector that we have here in Canada? Why do none of my products work together? And why does it, like all of this kind of stuff? Yeah. Because when you really get down to it, if you want to know how to set up a Facebook ad, there are free videos online, right? If you want to know how different email marketing platforms work, there's lots of free resources on that. And the button pushing is the easy part, where it starts to get really difficult. I see this a lot in Canada. I don't know if it's the same in the UK, is when you have people writing job descriptions for digital fundraising jobs or digital marketing jobs in the nonprofit sector, where the person writing the job description doesn't really have a good understanding of what that role should do.
Yeah.
And it becomes an insane list of software that they're supposed to be able to manage, coding skills that are inappropriate, video marketing skills that are inappropriate, like experience level that's inappropriate, and a salary that's inappropriate.
Yeah.
So it doesn't, a lot of that stuff doesn't make sense. If you can take somebody with, great communication skills, a good understanding of fundraising and all of that, you can teach them to push buttons. Like, you can teach them to work marketing software. You can teach them about social media marketing. I would much rather have someone with great design sense than I would, someone who can cut video in Adobe or something like that. And then have them writing my fundraising emails. I'd rather have a good copywriter. So the job descriptions I've seen can be pretty inappropriate, but I think a lot of that is changing with more discussion in the sector. So we're starting to see that in the professional communities online, in some of the associations, are having these discussions about what makes for a good job description, what are the roles of digital, the last time I saw, honestly, so I saw a job description the other day that was literally like, you're going to shoot all the online video for us. You're going to manage all the social channels. You're going to write grant applications. So now it's already veering off the page, right? And then it ended up with man the front desk between the hours of 2 and 3. So it's like, okay, who is this magical person, right? Like they say in the nonprofit happy hour group, who is this unicorn? But you're going to be disappointed. You're going to be disappointed.
Like in our sector, it feels like, especially if you work in a small nonprofit, you're going to get pulled into all these different areas. And so like the temptation for these job descriptions, they actually just want to write, look, you could fucking be doing anything. You're going to get asked to do anything, but they feel like they have to list out as many things as possible, just in case down the road this staff member says, well, it didn't say on my job description I had to go to the shop to get milk.
Yeah, I totally see that. And also not being able to prioritize which of those tasks are actually most beneficial to getting you towards your goals is an issue. So I'm hoping that that's changing a lot. And when we have conversations like this, it definitely changes, because there's no reason why, if you're a director of development and you know that you need to have a digital lead or a digital team, that you can't reach out and talk to your compatriots, talk to other people that are building a team. And there's tons of resources out there for you on that. So I feel like that's definitely really important.
So you, when you saw the glimmer of hope in these people's eyes, you decided to stay in the sector?
Oh yeah, I forgot about bringing it back to that. So I did, at the whole time, Kerr 2 had been reaching out to me too. And I just really appreciated meeting their team, talking to them. I really liked what they do. And I thought that there was a lot of opportunity for charities and nonprofits in Canada. So I love working for Kerr 2. Yeah, and so I decided to say yes. And did you know we do so many cool things? Our members do so many cool things. And I was just thinking about recently in the UK, one of our members created a petition to ban upskirting, because it turned out that upskirting was not illegal in England. That's when you can take a picture under somebody's skirt. Somehow that slipped through. And then last April, Parliament passed a ban on that. So I'm really proud of our members and all the awesome things that they do for progressive causes. So it's cool to work with.
I remember that because there was some conservative politician and he was like speaking out, trying to not defend
block
it, but trying to block the vote. And it was like, sorry, why do you want to block this? It's like so sketchy.
Awesome. That's great use of his time.
Yeah, it's horrible. Sorry, go ahead. No, go.
No, I was just going to say, and speaking of use of time, one of the things I talked a lot about in those meetings was a lot of orgs can get distracted about, they'll see some of the new stuff and then panic that they're not using it. So they might see something like virtual reality video games or gaming in general, or AI and all this great stuff. Like there's so many cool things that you can do, and that other orgs are doing. But one of the number one things that a lot of organizations weren't doing was thinking about or having a strategic approach to email marketing. And so I'd often say something like, okay, how many times do you, a month, a year, a week or whatever, do you communicate with people through email? The question was often, I don't know, or I think we have a newsletter, like things like that. When we know that email marketing is such a greater contributor to online fundraising than social media, for instance, as a channel. It is frustrating when you see that is an easy win. Putting together a welcome series, putting together a supporter journey for monthly donors, those are easy wins that you can do that don't require huge investment, like necessarily going out and buying a shiny new platform. So I always want people to kind of start there.
It seems to be one of the overarching themes when we talk about digital fundraising, and there's been people on this podcast who've touched on it before, Gene O'Brien and Matt Collins and people like that. And it's so tempting to jump across to TikTok and to Snapchat because it's like, everyone's talking about, it seems like it's getting mentioned a lot. It seems cool. It seems new. Should we be on it? And then, like you said, you go back and these organizations, they haven't even sent out an email, they haven't even started a mailing list, and they're starting that seem to start down the wrong end as opposed to the boring basic stuff that's been around for years that's proven.
And I think it goes back to what are my goals for everything that I'm doing, right? And if your goal is to be featured in a newspaper article or as an example of a progressive charity that's trying fun stuff on TikTok or whatever, that's great. Or if your goal is to deliver information, so you're a healthcare charity and you're talking about vaccines or something like that, and you're on TikTok saying, hey guys, get the HPV vaccine or something, that serves your goals,
really, with like some Drake soundtrack. And
have you seen the nursing TikToks? It's a thing. Nursing TikToks is a thing. Oh, now you're gonna see articles about it everywhere now that I mentioned it. But
because Google's listening to me?
Yeah, actually, yeah. Like think of how many devices and stuff we have open right now. Google was listening to you a second ago. So
yeah, I know. They're listening to me all the time. And this is what I want to talk to you about. This is really important.
Yeah.
Do you want to finish your story, or can I ask you this question?
No, I was just going to say that if you go back to what your goals are, if your goals are to either acquire more new donors, increase the average donation rate, or get people to donate more than once, so like acquire monthly givers or like recurring giving or whatever, then you have to ask yourself if this tactic serves that goal in general, especially if you're constrained by time or money, right?
Which we all are.
Yeah. Exactly. If you can test, go ahead,
Yeah. So it's about thinking back to what are the goals as opposed to we should be on everything just for the sake of being on everything.
Yeah, I think that's what really overwhelms a lot of leaders, especially because they feel the criticisms from all directions. What do you mean your org isn't using TikTok? What do you mean that you haven't reached out to video game influencers to do a peer-to-peer event for you? Because the charity down the street did. So if St. Jude's is doing it, why aren't you doing it? I mean, it's like so it's I difficult. Understand.
It's difficult. Okay, I wanna cast your mind back. So I've known you a few years, and generally we see each other in Canada, usually at Congress or something like that. A couple of years ago, I saw you speak in the United States at one of the AFP events. I don't know if you remember. It was the year where like the country wasn't letting in Canadians, and like all these people we knew were getting refused. It was like bad times, and actually they've gotten worse in terms of that. But you did an amazing presentation, and you're a great speaker. And one of the things that always stuck out at me, which I thought was amazing, you were talking about this incident where you'd been shopping for a dress online, or you'd been looking at this particular dress, and then you were talking about retargeting. And this was probably early days for me in terms of understanding retargeting. And you were saying you began to see that dress pop up more and more across your Instagram, across other ways. And then the winner for me was then you pointed out that you were actually wearing the dress as you were presenting, and no one had really noticed until you pointed it out. But so clearly this retargeting worked. And that whole session, it was really good because it really kind of opened my eyes to a lot of this stuff. but it also, I think it fed into my paranoia a bit that all these devices, they are listening to us and they are targeting us with these ads. And like, how much is going on behind the scenes, and how much should we as fundraisers be tapping into, where we're totally like going to this Orwellian level of reading people's minds and targeting them with things that they know, we know they're on the fence about.
It's true.
It's a big question, but it scares me.
Oh, it's really interesting to talk about. And I'm always so surprised that it isn't talked about as much in terms of a digital marketing strategy at some of these conferences. I think you see talking about these kinds of techniques a little bit more in just marketing conferences or webinars in general for industry, which I do recommend that nonprofit professionals that are working in social media or communications just in general, even fundraising, because the ones that are marketed towards sales definitely talk about this a lot. But it's true. Retailers, like every time you if you share your Netflix password with a friend and you both have separate accounts, you will both get different welcome screens when you log in, where Netflix is serving up content that they think you'll like versus what your friend or your family will like. If you are on Amazon is going to tell you, we think based on your past purchases that you'll be interested in these future purchases. And what they're trying to push everyone towards is conversion towards buying the new book. On Netflix, they want you to consume, right? So we want you to watch as much stuff as possible. So we think based on the demographic information we have about you and based on your obvious interest which is a guess on previous stuff that you've watched, we've determined that somebody like you, based on information about people who are like you, would like this other action. Will you take this other action? And then even taking that action then, gives them more information to play with. And you see it all the time, right? So it could be you have signed up for a newsletter for your favorite clothing retailer. Once they have your email address, they can then target you with inside a social platform using a custom audience to show you the things that you were interested in before. Or they would know about your previous purchasing behaviors. That's something that you can also target on. They can make sure that you're only ever going to see things in the currency of your choice. And, maybe that they've realized that your particular market responds really well to a free shipping appeal versus another market which doesn't care about free shipping. So they're always going to make sure that that content is available in the creative that they show your segment versus some other segment. All of this stuff, all of these techniques are available to charities and nonprofits. So we can be doing this. So hopefully everyone has been is using search. So they're using their Google AdWords grant if they haven't done that yet. I know in talking to some people about Google AdWords that one of the things that constrains people from doing this is not having a stakeholder at their charity. So I think it's really, and Jean talked a lot about, I think, Google AdWords and the importance of them. I think if you have got your grant, it's really important to invest either in the employee who's going to be administrating it, invest some time in taking care of it, because it's a valuable technique for you, and it's also free money for you to play around with. So that's one technique you can use. Another thing you can use is you can use your own data. So acquisition is pretty tough, right? You get new people that come in and they're new supporters. That's always fantastic. But you also have, most organizations have a huge database. They have lots of email addresses, lots of phone numbers, maybe Facebook IDs if they've built an app back in the day or something like that. You can use your own information to build custom audiences inside social platforms, which then you can run special creative just for them. So an example of that would be there's a example from a charity that has been doing an annual holiday appeal on email, every single year. That's what they do. They go out to their donors and they say, hey, it's the holidays, please give. One year, they went out to people who had previously donated. So you obviously want to use variable content, right? If you ever talking to a donor, you always want them to know that they donated and how grateful you are and all of that. You don't want to have this generic messaging, right? So they went out to their previous donors and said, hey, you donated before, please give again. We would love your support, that kind of stuff. But then they also took all of their previous donors, the same ones that were going to get that email appeal. They put them into a custom audience on Facebook, which just means that Facebook is going to try and match everyone that they have in Facebook that matches your email file and allow you to target to them. So Mark Zuckerberg doesn't get your donor information. Don't worry. It's only allowed to match against it. And you can't create a custom audience of one person. So I can't just be like, you individual, I'm going to tell you. It has to be an aggregate. Yeah, it has to be like 1,000 or more people, right? Okay. And then I can run the same creative that they're going to get in their email. So I'm getting them on 2 channels. So say it's a picture of a puppy. It's going to end up in your inbox, and you already have an email series for the holidays. It's like 3 emails. It's the same puppy, maybe different subject line, maybe, a different story or something like that. Same colors, all of that kind of stuff. I can then plan out a Facebook ad series is going to be similar to the same group of people, so that they're inside Facebook and in their email, they're seeing the same puppy, or they're seeing the same colors, or seeing the same call to action, just like that dress that I saw on the website, and then also saw, other places, until they got me to jam my credit card in there. And in the charity that I talked about that did this, they saw the year that they doubled up their Facebook and email marketing, they saw a 20% boost in fundraising. So they saw 20% more donors or donations from that file. And the reason I think that one is a really interesting one is that they were marketing to previous donors. So they did have something to benchmark against, because it can, none of these things are perfect, right? You can't always go, well, I tried Facebook this year. How much of this is attributed to Facebook versus email? You can always know where someone converted from, whether they converted from email, clicked, and then made a donation, or Facebook. But it's really important to know the original source too, right? And a lot of these things you might think, okay, so someone saw that Facebook advertisement inside Facebook, but then when they got the final email on December 31st, because that's such a big day for online donations in Canada, they decided to click and make a donation because they remember they saw the puppy on Facebook, a couple of days ago or something like that. All of those things are, it's not an exact science, but we know more channels you have to communicate with people, the better the response is going to be. And then again, for the charity that told me this story, they said that the average person had to see that Facebook ad about 7 times before they clicked on it. So that's, I think actually not an uncommon story for people that are doing this kind of retargeting.
Yeah, I mean, that seems to be one of the kind of accepted statistics, that people need to see the message or the call to action like 7 times or more before they take action. So this is what that's built on, is it's trying to not just rely on that one email going out, or not just rely on that Facebook email going out, but you're trying to follow them around a little bit. You're trying to just keep popping up at the right time. Yeah.
So that's communicating with people on multiple channels with something that is going to be of value to them, or something that's going to be of interest to them. And then you can always, when it comes to doing acquisition, you can always put together a sort of an interest profile, or a donor profile, or an online donor profile of who you're trying to attract or acquire, and then think about what platform would make sense for them. So the example I usually use for that, and I might have used in this in the presentation you saw, was if you're trying to attract corporate or employees or corporate volunteers for a big event, where you want a bank to sign up 1,000 of their employees to do some peer-to-peer challenge or something like that. What you're really looking for is the CSR officer or the HR officer involved, who's going to be the stakeholder on that. And you want them to make the decision. And that person's desire, interest, values are not necessarily aligned with your charity. Their interests are, how do I come up with a really great initiative for my employees that will fit our CSR mandate, but then my employees will really like too. So what you could do in that example, and I've seen hospitals experimenting with this, is go to LinkedIn, build an ad that targets people with those job titles in the sectors that you think make sense, that are in the area, the cities and areas that make sense for you, and then go out to them with creative that doesn't just say, you're not saying donate to my charity. You're saying, here's a team building exercise for you. Here's the best employee experience ever for a good cause. Like sort of reaching the kinds of things that individual is looking for. They're looking for great employee experiences that also benefit charity, that also match their, their CSR alignment. So that's a creative use of targeting, using a platform that would make sense to find them. Whereas,
sorry, I was going to say it makes a lot of sense, and I think we neglect it sometimes when we're doing Google ads or Facebook ads or LinkedIn ads. We sometimes make the mistake of advertising what we're trying to sell or what we're trying to get across, as opposed to advertising to what people are looking for.
Yeah,
and the advert is more about the trying to find the bridge between their need and our what we're selling. That seems to be a common mistake people make.
Yeah, and it just reminds me too of a story, another hospital story that I heard. They actually
how many hospital ads are you getting? Maybe you need to go to the doctor.
This one was on a podcast, actually.
Okay.
But it was great. What the issue was, it was a children's focused hospital in a city where there was, in Toronto, where there is a very big, well-known, nationally known children's hospital. So imagine you're trying to market your hospital when, almost the entire country knows the other one. So if you are looking at your Google AdWords and anyone who's going to type in Children Hospital Toronto, everyone knows what hospital they're going to get, right? Or they're donate to children, donate toys, donate blah, blah, all that kind of stuff. So what they did was really clever. They thought even just the word donations or fundraising or Toronto are really completely crowded market when it comes to Google. So what they did was they put budget towards employee engagement, volunteering, Toronto, like those types of words. And they found that people were being directed to their corporate volunteering page. First, they had actually noticed that page was pretty popular in their traffic stats and also on Google. But this was a way for them to bring people in who were looking for those opportunities. If you want to do volunteering with this organization, you as a corporation have to make a significant donation, which I also think all charities should be doing. And I'm surprised that a lot of charities and nonprofits aren't asking corporate volunteers and corporate sponsors to make a donation, because they get so much out of it. It's professional development, or not. It's like employee engagement for them, right?
Yeah.
So this was their way of getting a great ROI on Google AdWords without thinking about it as a direct marketing tool. So a lot of people think that their AdWords should always be direct marketing, like give now to the puppy, or whatever it happens to be. But it doesn't necessarily have to be that way.
That's clever. So I'm curious, these platforms, say you have like LinkedIn, who obviously build up information about us. You have Facebook, who have so much information about us. Google, who are reading our emails and have, constantly listening to us. How much are they talking to each other? So, when you're talking about building up a profile and following people, obviously people don't sit on Facebook for their lifetime. They kind of move around these different platforms. How able are we to have adverts and retargeted ads follow them around different companies, or are all these companies just owned by the New World Order anyway?
It depends on the company, right? But essentially, I think the most important thing, and the thing that is really difficult for charities, is tracking the sort of the original source of a donor or a new volunteer or a new supporter or a new newsletter subscriber or whatever, then or either tracking that sort of acquisition and then what they end up doing, or looking at it the other way, right? Like you might get someone who's come in from one platform, but they're already in your CRM, and you're like, hey, what happened here? We already know this person. They're already known to us. What channels have we already marketed to them on? That is what I think is really difficult for charities, because without being able to understand how to attribute your success online, or to understand what people are doing online, it can be hard to assign budget towards it. So there's no, and also industry struggles with this too, right? There's tons of tools out there. There's plenty of free courses in Google Analytics and plenty of expensive courses in Google Analytics out there that you can look at. But there isn't one sort of perfect way to say, we originally had an experience with this person, which was on the street, sort of a public outreach type situation where we signed that individual up and we got their email address at that point. What did we do then? How do we market to them? Were they actually, did they become a monthly donor? Are they receiving our emails? Because we just saw them click on something in Facebook and come in and make a donation. So what spurred them to convert to that donation? Was it the marketing we've done with them over the last 24 months? Or was it that, they saw something on television and felt compelled to give and they've never even opened an email from us, or they've never even realized that they had signed that petition or something on the street before. So when we get better at that, that definitely helps.
And that's tough because there's so many, for each person, there's this weird maze they're going through of what we're sending them, of what they're seeing on TV, of what's happening in their personal life. And then you multiply that by every single supporter on our database. It's there's only so much we can generalize about these people. So at the end of the day, what are you talking about? You're talking about a numbers game. You're talking about trying to maximize the chances that the people you target on Facebook, that they're the most likely people to donate to you, or the people who see your Google ad, they're the most likely to follow through with this and therefore giving you the best ROI.
Yeah. And I think when you're putting together your digital donor profile, right, a lot of charities already have their own donor profile, right? This is the person we think is most likely to give in this particular way, whether it's one-time donation, monthly, you might have a major donor profile, that kind of thing. But when you're putting together your sort of digital profiles, a lot of there isn't one perfect profile, but a lot of it really doesn't have to be demographic information. I think we get too tied to the idea that the ultimate donor is a woman who lives in a city who's 45 years old. A lot of it is what they're motivated by or what their values are. My ideal digital donors' values are that they think climate change is the number one concern for them politically. Or that they are very interested in social justice, or they're very interested in maternal health. That could be something that's important to them. And this is the kind of information that social media platforms have, because your average Razor's Edge implementation doesn't have Claire Kerr interested in climate change, polar bears, that sort of thing. Or it doesn't say Claire Kerr. She follows all these stakeholders on these types of issues that are important to her, that, really create her identity or her sense of values. And that's what you want to reach out to people with. Have a really good qualified new supporter is someone who matches your values, whether they're 45, whether they're 21, and all the demographic data will say, well, okay, if someone comes in who's 45 versus 21, the 45-year-old probably going to have a higher average donation amount, probably going to respond on these channels, X, Y, and Z, that sort of thing. But in terms of qualification for being a supporter, both of those people are important to your cause. So it's these online platforms that allow you to play in that sort of space, right? Because when you're stopping people on the street, you're kind of just stopping whoever walks by you. If you have a billboard, you're marketing to everyone who has a car, I guess. That'd be a demographic profile, right? But if you're able to say, okay, I'm going after people who are following these two orgs, because I think that these two orgs have values that, are similar to mine, and that I'm going out with creative and content that speaks to something that is at the heart of who their identity, that tribalism, that can lead for successful acquisition campaigns, response rate. You tell me, there's so many great case studies out there.
Yeah.
I mean, all the ones we kind of talk about, that really speaks to someone's values. What are the things that you are upset about that you want to do something about?
So you're one of the big bits of advice I'm taking away from this, or people who are listening taking away from it, I love that advice of getting your digital goal, your digital target clear in your head, as opposed to just trying to do everything. But for other people who are listening who want to start, getting their head around this, these retargeted ads or the audience, because there's so many nonprofits I've worked with who have never even heard of this idea of uploading email addresses to Facebook to get a good audience. We don't necessarily know this is even going on. Where should people start? What's the kind of priority for them, assuming they're already sending emails, they're already dabbling in social media? Where do they start about bringing their advertising to the next level?
Okay, well, I think you got it in one where you were talking about what is your goal going to be. So if you even just sort of set 3 goals for the next 12 months, we want to increase the number of people who say they're going to be monthly donors instead of one-time donors. So, okay, how are we going to do that? What tactics we put towards that? Well, we can start telling people to become monthly donors. We can start doing that in our email marketing. We can create a funnel series for everybody instead of just, if you're a one-time donor, you just get a thank you from us at the end of the year or something like that, right? We can start being monthly first. So we can, instead, when we are running our Facebook ads and things like that, we can start going out with become a monthly donor. It's so important, like when you hit the page, that's the first thing that you see. We can retarget. We could say, okay, we're going to take everybody who was a previous donor, and we're going to use Facebook as a platform because it's the most popular commercial social media platform in Canada. And we are going to go out to them with messaging about upgrading to become a monthly donor. And maybe we're going to try getting people to, we're going to try creating a lookalike audience, which is another thing that you can do inside Facebook, where you can use your audience that you've created. Maybe it's your an audience of previous donors, or if you have enough of them, maybe it's monthly donors, or it could just be your supporters in general. And Facebook will look at the characteristics of those individuals that are hidden to you and offer you an audience to market to that also contains those characteristics, but which you don't have who have never followed you or have never, become part of your ecosystem or anything like that, never given you an email address. So that's a good way for you to use the data you already have to find other people who would be interested in what you have to offer, based on characteristics that you might not actually know. So all those things that we kind of talked about that you might have to sit down and think about, the people that they follow, the newspapers that they read, the interests that they have, their favorite, all sorts of things, their age. I mean, a lot of people don't have that data in Razor's Edge or anything like that. Then that's the type of thing that a platform like Facebook can then find, because they have all that data on us, and then allow you to market towards those folks. And all you're doing is being given the opportunity to talk to them, right? So you're being given the opportunity to put your content in front of these folks. So it's all about getting eyeballs on your content. And then what your call to action is, whether it makes sense for people, whether it's something that they want to respond to, and whether you respectfully follow up too, right? Is all on you as an organization. That's all important. Because if you were to go out with some kind of crazy creative, win $1 million, click here, win $1 million, right? And then you don't follow up with anything on that topic, right? That's disrespectful to your audience. If it's not going to be effective, just because you got people to click and convert doesn't mean that that was a successful campaign. So if you're talking about polar bears, follow up with those people about polar bears. Don't send them some random monthly newsletter, right? So that happens quite a lot. And don't be frightened to communicate with people on any of these platforms. In terms of getting started, there are, there's the charity digital newsletter, which is in the UK, which is a good one. I like that one. Everyone should attend Fundraising Everywhere, which is another great series. Nice. And hear from the experts there. But there's been a lot written about this already. Facebook online advertising is pretty old, and there are a lot. John Hayden's blog has a lot of great stuff too. There's tons of cool things out there with just a little bit of time and effort. And if anyone is interested in resources that are specifically Canadian, which is my area of free stuff, I have lots of free Canadian stuff. They can reach out to me on LinkedIn, and I'll send them an email with a whole bunch of free things for them. But it's almost like finding out how to do it is not really the issue. Even when you're inside the Facebook ad platform, they show you, all sorts of things that you can do. It's really about getting the buy-in from your team, determining what your goals are, and putting the tactics towards those goals. And then you really need that buy-in from everyone. So, I've seen a lot of talk about digital team building in the sector and how important that is. And this is part of that. So this is definitely going to be a cross-departmental exercise. And I will tell you one more story that I told from, I mentioned before that I had some Skype calls too. So during my consulting stuff, And there was one lovely organization in the US. It wasn't really a small organization, but for some reason, they just never focused on monthly donors. So I asked them, do you have any monthly donors? And she said, oh, yes, we have 7. So it's like, okay, 7. So I kind of joked, like, you must know them all by name. And she was like, oh, I don't know, maybe. And then she told me, just give me a second. I'm going to go into the database and check. And so I hear her clicking, tapping away. She's like, yes, 7 monthly donors. And I'm like, okay, that's great. And then she says, just sort of like she randomly, oh, wow, someone's giving $100 a month. So I was like, $100 a month? Like, they must really like you. So I said, have you called them? And she said, oh, no, we don't call or email monthly donors. We don't want to remind them they're giving.
Yeah.
Now, I'm sure you've heard that before, right?
Yeah, like countless times. It's so funny. It's such a crazy thing that people think they're not noticing.
Yeah, and then that's what I hear a lot when it comes to email marketing or online marketing. Like, we don't want to, we're more worried about over communicating when I think the word should be under communicating. You know, I'm not saying everyone has to be like Domino's Pizza sending me an email every day at 5 p.m. But I mean, we do know the rates on unsubscribe are people are most likely to unsubscribe when you've gone a long period of time having not sent anything. And then you send that one email, people go, oh, right, you exist, unsubscribe. But when you're really consistent, people are not unsubscribing. That's why I still get emails from Domino's every day that I look forward to because they have pizza emojis.
They comfort you.
Yeah,
well, it's about remembering what the point of your email list is and the point of your Facebook list is. If you're a fundraiser, you're building that list to bring money in. So I'm always, people worry about unsubscribes, and I'm always kind of like, well, if it's someone who is never going to give anyway, unsubscribing, then it's great. It means we don't have to pay to communicate with them, and we don't have to like waste our time with them.
Yeah, and don't hang on to that dead file. Like, people just they will hold on to people in their database that have been non-responsive for 10 years, and they don't think about their data hygiene or what that's doing to their like send rate. And then we talked about this with Facebook. Another thing you can do as a last resort, take all the emails of the people who have not been responding to your emails, so they haven't opened anything in like 24 months or whatever. Put them into Facebook as a custom audience and run a sign up for updates, hear more from us type campaign, and get them to resubscribe, or maybe get them to follow you on Facebook, or get them to do something else. There's tons of reasons why people don't open an email. So there's a lot of reasons why they might actually still care about your cause, but for some reason, you're just not going to be hitting it in their inbox. Why not try and talk to them on a different platform? Because at some point they loved you. So these folks that are following us on social, giving us their email, trusting us with their data, they love us and they want to hear more from us. So this is, a way to reach out to them.
It's clever. As always, Claire, you're very clever. So people who want to reach out to you and maybe talk to you more, are you still offering free time for people to chat to them? Oh, yeah? Okay, cool. Where do they find you?
LinkedIn. So my LinkedIn handle is Claire Toronto, I think. So you can always, just like search Claire Toronto. You can message me on LinkedIn or, shoot me a Twitter message.
You're big on Twitter. You've gone viral a few times, I've seen. Yeah,
I know. I had some Nazis coming after me after that one joke about not. Yeah.
Kind of a good viral tweet when the Nazis come after you.
The white nationalists, man.
Oh my God.
What are you
on Twitter?
I'm snot for profit.
And tell me, I've been meaning to ask you for years, is it snot for profit or is it's not for profit kind of?
Well, when I signed up for Twitter back in the day, this is ages ago. I signed up, I think, through a third party like some sort of like get your Twitter handle here or whatever.
Yeah, and before they all go.
Yeah, exactly. And I wanted it to be it's not for profit, but that was apparently too long. So it got cut off and it was snot for profit. And I thought, okay, who cares? I won't use Twitter anyway. And I thought, this is funny. Who cares? Whatever.
It suits your brand, I think.
I just kept it.
It's you.
Yeah, it's not for profit. So you can go with it. It's not for profit, but
okay. Cool.
Yeah. So I'm happy to chat with anybody about all of these issues. And again, if you were looking for any kind of training resources, I have tons that I share with students, clients, whatever it is, because I definitely think it's the education portion that is something that everyone can focus on in 2020, whether it's free education, whether it's investing in yourself and doing some continuing ed, buying that webinar, buying the virtual conference ticket. We need to invest in ourselves a little bit more in the sector, I think.
Well said. Fantastic. And my last question for you is, I want to get your opinion on this. Are our devices constantly listening to us and using that information to target us with ads? When people, if I mention a bunion and then the next day I see an ad about, bunion medication, is this actually happening? Because people are denying it.
Well, I'll say this. I've never seen a case study on that being done for fundraising, but I'm still waiting. I'm still waiting for someone to say, oh, I wish I could do more for the world. And then suddenly this donate now to save the polar bears just pops up and you're like, wow, that's so weird, right?
Yeah. Maybe that's why we don't see it, because no one's going like, I can't give away my money. Where should I give my money away to?
That's exactly all the billionaires sitting around going, oh, Alexa, where do I give my money? I can't speak for the Google Home and Alexa devices either, because I don't have one. No. But I'm so up on technology here. I don't know what I would do without my iPhone and blah, blah, blah. I can't imagine yet another device, but it could happen.
I'm torn. I love my Google Home, and I know she's going to hear me now. But the
but you just said, oh no, she's going to hear me now.
Yeah, she's gonna beat me later. I love her, but she, I'm kind of torn, because I just know Google's just constantly recording me and analyzing everything I say. It's so dodgy.
Well, I mean, it's the NSA that we joke about here, right? Like, that's the NSA or my, FBI agent who's watching me 24/7. So, there's reason to be paranoid too. So, and the other thing too is I often tell nonprofit professionals, knowing how to use these platforms and working these platforms into your communications plan or your sort of like digital marketing for your nonprofit doesn't mean that you personally have to be on these platforms. So, sort of like understanding these online communities and understanding how they work towards your goals, that's definitely important if that's under your portfolio. But nobody is saying that you have to be on Facebook, you have to be on Instagram, that you have to use LinkedIn. That's your personal choice. There's lots of valid reasons why people might not want to be on these platforms, and that's something that I talk about with my students a lot as well. So that's totally okay. And so, I mean, like, they're all getting aligned, right? Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, is just like one company, So yeah, but that's also why you would see an Instagram. You were talking about cross-platform. That's why you see Instagram ads that follow you onto Facebook, and it's basically one campaign on two different platforms. It seem like two platforms.
Oh my god, it's interesting. I am torn. I love it and I hate it. Okay, Claire, I'm not going to keep you any longer. I've kept you long enough. Thank you so much for finally coming on the podcast and chatting to us. I feel like there's a lot more we could talk about, but maybe another time.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much. This was great.
Thank you so much. Nice to talk to you, and talk to you soon.
Okay, bye.
You've been listening to Simon Scriver's Amazingly Ultimate Fundraising Superstar podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and head over to changefundraising.com to learn more or get in touch with Simon. Or don't, whatever. You're big enough to make a decision.
What's up, fundraisers? This is Simon Scriver.
And this is Nikki Bell, and we are the founders of the virtual fundraising conference, Fundraising Everywhere.
And we have just launched Fundraising Everywhere membership. So if you want full access to the virtual conference every November, if you want full access to the Fundraising Everywhere Festival in May, if you want bonus downloads, if you want access to extra sessions, if you want access to VIP events, if you want access to all of my masterclasses online, if you want Pizza for Losers discount, if you want all this stuff and loads more, and a whole bunch of other stuff which we can't even cram into this tiny podcast ad. But if you want part of that, then go to fundraisingeverywhere.com, become a member, be part of the family, pay a small monthly membership fee to us, and you'll get all of this stuff.
Will that do?